Analyzing the Cold War, presented by Imani Wooding. Today, I will be discussing the Cold War and more specifically focusing on the topics of gender equality, youth rebellion, and the rejection of mainstream mores, also known as counterculture. First of all, I will give a brief history of the Cold War. The superpowers, known as the United States and the Soviet Union, had a battle of ideas. It was essentially communism from the Soviet Union against the capitalist United States. This clash was heightened by previous events where Korea was split into the North and South, with the North being communist and the South capitalist. Then the nuclear arms race began in the late 1950s. This all ended much later in the 1990s along with the collapse of the Soviet Union. Now, I will first address gender equality during the time of the Cold War. Gender equality in this era was extremely important in that it helped globally improve the status of women. The United States, in particular, actually promoted the idea of women consumerism, as well as the concept that women belong at home doing domestic work rather than in a workplace. This is even more enforced by the video supposedly teaching how to respect women in the workplace. In the meantime, the Soviet Union emphasized that women are equal and should be treated as such, a means of pay and how many there are in the workplace. Now to address youth rebellion in the Cold War era. Despite the negatives of this, there is definitely some gender roles reversal in this time that helped improve women's rights and the status of them in the nation. Youth rebellion is actually a similar topic to counterculture. However, it focuses a bit more on allowing young people to have a voice about government in general, as well as not accepting what they were told. A popular film with this topic was Rebel Without a Cause. It completely captured the views of restless, misunderstood average youth. This reactionary movie also exploits the desires of teens who may connect to the characters' issues such as dysfunctional families, but also stylized lives. In addition to this social uproar, many more controversial issues in the nation were much more apparent. Last but not least, the last topic I would be speaking about is the one of cultural rejection of mainstream mores. Cultural rejection of mainstream mores, which could also be known as counterculture, was popularized during the 1960s. A huge example of this includes the Woodstock Festival, which is known for the music, peaceful energy, and some way out recreational drugs. Despite being anti-war, the U.S. Army dropped supplies for them in a time of crisis. Despite being against the government and whatever they had to say, another form of the rebellion of this movement included experimenting with drugs such as marijuana and LSD. Some aspects of counterculture are preferring peace much over war and possibly seeking other and possibly better solutions. This pacifist mentality is great in theory and for protest, but it was rarely actually implemented by the government. The constant threat of nuclear bombs, despite not going through with them, is not what the counterculturists had in mind during this era. Now to review everything, gender equality was not vastly improved during this time, but definitely was in the Soviet Union. There was some progress, however, not enough considering how many women were entering the workplace. Youth rebellion and counterculture may very well go hand in hand. However, youth rebellion focused more on the demographic of teens and their perspective on politics, the government, and even their own parents. While counterculture was more of a whole movement that was also glamorized by films and media.